Sure, you have. Go ahead, please.
All right, so we are recording now. Welcome to the Director of Communications interview for the Continuing Committee with Ben Liebich. So I'm Maggie Geppert. I am the Executive Officer. Ben is here in the lower left. Joining us today from the Search Committee are Ross Fertel and Sasha Kiefer. So thank you all for taking time out of your day for this interview. So I'm just going to go ahead and first off get everyone's consent to record. So Ben, do I have your consent to record this interview?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Sasha, do I have your consent to record?
Yes, of course.
All right, Ross, do I have your consent to record?
On condition that anyone looking at this for purposes other than reviewing the interviews says, that's a good point, Ross. Every time I talk, yes.
All right, thank you. So we had a set of questions, just put together a set of questions for all of our candidates here. So I'm just going to start, Ben, with some of the good basic stuff. So what do you think the role of a communications director is?
Well, I guess basically the role of director in general to facilitate the communication amongst your department heads, which is probably the most important objective to do. And then, of course, to think about the broader, where are we going with our communications, and give out some guidelines and some directions where to go, where you want your department heads to go with their departments, and so on and so forth. And then I think, especially for the Department of Communications, it's also to facilitate communication among the committee, which I think is probably one of the bigger objectives that needs to be taken care of currently.
Okay. So if I pause for a second, it's just because I'm writing notes for this. All right, why do you want to hold this position?
Well, I think I can contribute to that. When I watched the last board meeting, there was still no applicant for this position. So first and foremost, my first thought was, hey, maybe I can help out. And then the further I thought about it, I came up with a lot of good ideas that with what I can do in this position, and ideas with which I can help out. And yeah, I guess I think I'd like to help out.
All right. As a board member, the Director of Communications is subject to a vote of no confidence during the period of review. Are you willing to subject yourself to the period of review?
Sure, I have no problem with that. I would, always expect people to come to me first if they think I'm not doing a good job, but I have no problem with getting reviewed.
Tell us why you think the Director of Communications role is so important to the Continuing Committee.
Well, basically, it's I think it's a centerpiece that is pretty much there to help glue the different departments together, and it's basically a representative for the committee towards the general public, not only our own community, but also the outside public. And as head of the Department of Communications, you're also you have the Ambassador Corps under you, which are our men on the ground in public. And I guess that's I guess it's a very important position when it comes to, you know, how the committee is perceived in public.
All right. So how do you think the CC is doing in retaining players, promoting the game, and dealing with problem players?
Well, I'm not sure about retaining players. I'm not sure how much actually can be done with that. I mean, if players leave the game, they usually have their reasons for that. I don't know how many players can actually be, you know, or how many you can prevent from actually leaving by doing something. Probably most people have their reasons for leaving. What was the second part of the question?
How are we doing with promoting the game?
Oh, promoting the game. Okay. I think we can do better. I think in the present moment, we're basically, you know, we're letting new players come to us. We're at a very, or not very, we're at a relatively passive point with the promotion of the game to new players. But I have a bunch of ideas where that could be, where we could make loads of gains in that department.
All right, and then the third part of the question is how are we doing at dealing with problem players?
Unfortunately, not well, I would say. I would actually be a lot happier if we could attend to problem players much earlier than we're actually doing, because, you know, with certain players, this has come to a boiling point that probably could have been prevented if action had been taken earlier. And by action, I mean basically just, you know, talk to one another. We're relying heavily on the message boards, and you know, conflict boils up very easily there. And I'm always a fan of just, you know, a quick phone call or a quick Skype chat, and if talking to one another always trumps writing little messages at one another. So I guess there's a lot of room for improvement there.
All right. How do you think that the current way of communication with players is working? If so, how? If not, what would you improve?
What do you mean by who communicating with the players?
Well, how do you, you know, how is do you think that the continuing committee is doing a good job at communicating with players? And so basically, if we are doing a good job, what are our strengths? And if we, you know, but also where could we improve?
Well, I think this basically also falls under the theme of where we're taking a relatively passive stance in communication. I think Austin's doing a pretty good job with the social media channels, but I think there's also room for improvement there. Especially in this day and age, I think an argument could have been, or could be made for much more involvement on the different social media platforms, up to a point where I would be interested in exploring whether there's an opportunity for creating a whole social media team rather than just a social media manager, and having a whole different, parts of that team take care of our Twitter presence, our YouTube presence, our Facebook presence, and what have you. And I think we can engage a lot better with the players on those channels, rather than to have them come to the message boards or to the website. We can take a lot more proactive stance there.
So what are some projects or initiatives that you have in mind if you get the role of Director of Communications?
Well, first of all, I really want to figure out something that we do or that we could do with the Ambassador Corps. But, as everybody has probably noticed, they're quite underutilized. I think, well, in my opinion, as I said before, the ambassadors are men on the ground. And I would have them, I would see that we can equip them with, types of business cards or little flyers or something. And so that potential new players, when you go to a comic book store or a gaming store or something, they can lay out something, and potential new players have a contact, somebody they can turn to, and then they can find help there to get them into the game. So that's my broad, vision for the Ambassador Corps. And as far as the social media themes, I would love to, we've recently done a little YouTube show, and we got a lot of positive feedback on that. And I think the committee can do very well. There's we have a lot of characters in the community, and by doing maybe a little YouTube show every week, focusing on deck design or just a basic Trek talk. I mean, people watch everything on YouTube, and if there's a 3-hour YouTube video of paint drying, people will watch it. So why don't we utilize that by doing some shows, see how that goes, and then use that as a platform to get people to the website and get people to check out the game.
All right, so how would you utilize each member of your communications team? So those, for record, are the writing team manager, the social media manager, the proofreading team leader, and the chief ambassador. So you've already touched a bit on the Ambassador Corps and social media. What can we do with the writing team manager and proofreading?
Well, I think well, I don't know. The writing team's doing. Is there actually a writing team manager currently? I don't think so, right?
Daniel Madison, when he stepped back from this position, said that he'd like to stay on as the writing team manager. And right now, what he's doing with that gig is basically approving articles.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I think the writing team manager. There's probably a good chance of that there are people who are actually interested in writing some articles, but they don't I don't know. I think the writing team manager can go out and encourage people to do that, because it's as far as I know, it's basically the same bunch of people that keep writing articles, and I think if we broaden our team there a bit, that wouldn't be the worst idea. And I'm reading a lot of great tournament reports, for example, and I bet some of the guys have some writing skills that could be helpful to us. And as far as I actually can't really say anything about proofreading, because I've no idea what that actually what they're actually doing, apart from obviously proofreading.
Well, that's pretty much what they do. The proofreading team's job really is just to proofread the final version of any set. So, like right now, Project Bruce is in proofreading. So, Joe, all of the edits that you see from all the comments you see from Joe Bazemore, he's on the proofreading team.
Oh yeah, I actually only have access to the staff board since yesterday, so I'm not quite quite up to date on that.
Yeah. So they really are, sometimes people think that they proofread the articles, but they actually don't have any access to proofreading of the articles. The writing team manager is kind of supposed to be looking at that, but yeah, nobody really, we don't have anybody in sort of an editorial role.
Okay.
All right, so let's see what's next. So you've talked a little bit about making so I'm just looking at the next question, which is, how would you work with a social media manager in the ambassador corps to promote or encourage new players? But we already kind of touched on that a bit. Here's one from Ryan Sutton. He's one of our, I forgot to tell you, Ryan Sutton and Neuropolis Prime are our other two, excuse me, Ryan Sutton, yeah, Neuropolis Prime, and actually Austin Chandler are our other committee members. So I forgot to mention that before. This question came from Ryan. COVID-19 has caused a resurgence of nostalgia for STCCG. How would you keep that nostalgia alive?
Nostalgia in what sense? I'm not sure. I understand that.
Well, so we've been seeing a lot of old players coming back, and you may not have seen this as much because this is happening a lot more on the first edition side than on the second edition side. We're seeing a lot of old players come back because they're like, hey, I was stuck in my house and I was cleaning my closets out and I found all my old cards and this made me really miss playing the game. And lo and behold, I found this here. So what do you think we could do to sort of capitalize on this situation?
Well, I think at the present moment it's very difficult because we can't have in-person tournaments and any gatherings of any sort. So I think what's been quite interesting to me is that we can make a lot more use of the online play currently, and I'm not sure if there's. I mean, I see events going down basically every weekend, and I'm not quite sure how those old players would be willing or interested in turning themselves to online play, but I'm guessing there's a chance to showcase how much the game has changed since whenever they stopped playing. And there's a good chance to showcase that through maybe some casual online games, not even tournaments. But I think showcasing the changes in the game would probably help keep those people on board.
Yeah, James Heaney had an interesting idea that was similar to that. He's like, I would love to write, like a history, because, well, he just loves to write long things. Anyway, I'm not throwing shade on James in this interview, where he's like, I would love to write like a history of this. If you stopped playing here in this year, this is what has happened since then. And I thought that was an interesting way of, that would be an interesting sort of articles to do, or article series to do. Like, what has changed since you quit in 1998? Yeah. So that might be, that was something an interesting idea I've seen before. All right, so next question. There is a push to increase articles and cards of the day, or cards of the day post. How do you think this can be accomplished when we have a limited number of volunteers at this time?
Well, I think the volunteers that we have, are doing as good as can be expected under the current conditions, and if we have to I think we have to make conscious decisions on what projects are actually viable to do before we put something on those projects that maybe doesn't, or if we put somebody on a project that maybe doesn't go anywhere, then that's just a waste of resources. And so I think the department heads and on top of that, their directors need to take a good look at what is actually a viable project, and then make sure to make the best use of the limited resources that we have, and whatever that may be.
All right. So let's see. You've already answered the next question, which is, what's your experience with streaming video, and how would you utilize it in this role? You actually already answered that in a previous question, but I will ask this next one after that. What is your experience dealing with news media? Have you ever promoted anything on television or in print, or even like any sort of, anything online even?
No, not at all. I've, as I said in my application, I have very limited experience in public relations and these kinds of things. So that's something that would be completely new to me. But I'm absolutely willing, to learn.
All right. How important is promoting high-level play in other places than just the continuing committee website and social media? So we've talked a bit about content for articles, but like specifically for high-level play.
I think, interesting question. I don't know. I'm not sure what the best. I mean, it's obviously important, but I think the high level play. I mean, most of the high level players are pretty conscious of what's going on anyway. So I'm not sure whether or not promoting that would actually be our most pressing issue. I would be much more interested in promoting casual play, to get players to actually play, because on the high level side, I think what's going on there is pretty much going on anyway. And I hope I got that question right, because I'm not quite sure if I'm answering that question or if I'm just rambling about here, but.
I think you get the gist of it. I'll admit this was not one of the questions I wrote, but no, I think you get the idea of what the whoever wrote this was thinking. All right, so now we have we have a couple of other not position, but just related question, or so Star Trek related question. What is your favorite affiliation, deck type in 1E and 2E?
I haven't actually played 1E in probably 16 years or so. So I can't really make a statement there. And in 2E, it's definitely Klingons, and it's definitely Klingon battle decks. I love interaction.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get you in on the first edition side then. I've been sucked in, so everybody else needs to be too.
Yeah, whenever a new set comes out, I always look at the cards and I think, oh God, I need to get in on that, and then somehow I kind of look at the rules and the 10 dozen side decks, and it gets really intimidating, and then I kind of don't do it.
And then you retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I felt that way for a very, very, very long time. So I understand exactly how that feels. All right. This is my new favorite question that Ross turned me on to. So I'll ask this from you. What is your favorite unpopular Star Trek episode and why?
Unpopular Star Trek episode. Okay. Jesus.
So if you want an example, just of a way that way that you can answer it, mine is Manhunt. And the reason mine is Manhunt, so that's the TNG episode where Loxana gets all hormonally and weird, which is a bit cringy, I will admit, but it also shows off Loxana at her most, like, I'm me, and I'm gonna be exactly me, and I don't care what you think. Yes, like that's what I love about Loxana, and that episode really shows that off. And when I'm an old lady, I hope to emulate some of that. I don't give an F what you thinkness. So that's my answer to that question. So if you've come up with something.
I don't know. I actually don't know if it's concerned an unpopular episode. But what just popped into my head is a DS9 episode that is called Starship Down. That's the episode where the Defiant battles a Dominion ship and then gets into the atmosphere of a gas giant, and kind of Cisco gets knocked out. And I really love that episode because for some reason Quark is on board, and in the midst of all the chaos that's going on, he just decides to teach the Kareman minister, the essence of I'm not even sure if it was Dabo or Tongo, but they're sitting in the mess hall, talking about the game, whilst the ship is about to be destroyed. I always enjoyed that on that episode.
Well, and it's got is that from Cochrane? The actor's name is escaping me right now.
James Cromwell.
James Cromwell, thank you. I knew it was a James. I couldn't remember the last name. It's got James Cromwell in it. You can never go wrong with James Cromwell.
Yeah.
No, that's a good scene where he's teaching him about being the essence of a Ferengi, and and how they, and the ambassador's like, what are you talking about? We want to be fair. We want everybody to go away from this with something. And so yeah, that is an interesting. That definitely is an interest. That's a good scene in there for sure. Especially because isn't there a bomb in the mess hall too? It's
there's a torpedo in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's remove this and hope it doesn't explode. Yes.
All right. And I think that this is the last question. Unless Ross has anything there. What character from all of Star Trek do you see yourself most resembling? So 2 or 3 character traits from multiple characters are fine on this one too.
Okay. I don't know. I can honestly, I can honestly say, it's probably most all DS9 characters, because I think that was the most character heavy show. I always loved the authority that Captain Sisko brought, but I also was very. I have a lot of I think I have a lot of Garrick and Quark in me.
All right. So you're sneaky and greedy is what I'm hearing there.
Yeah, probably.
And you can measure me for slacks?
Not that actually. Not a tailor. Much more secret agent.
Yeah, I always wished, like, for me, that's for me, I'm Jadzia Dax 8 for a reason. I always wished that, especially in college, wished that I was tall and thin and beautiful and also brilliant, and like, it's like, no, I can have pieces of some of those things. But no.
Hey, you can at least have the spots.
Yeah. Hey, I can do the spots. Yes, I can totally do the spots, man. I'll tell you a story about the spots after we're done recording. So I think we don't really have any other questions, unless Ross, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, the only question that I have is already answered about familiarity with 1E, but covered that. So I'm actually pretty good.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, don't think so.
All right. Well, with that then.
Sasha?
I think somebody else has a question.
Oh, Sasha, did you have a question? Sorry, I wasn't watching the video. I was watching my notes.
No problem, no problem. I just waited for the call for questions. So I make notes also, Ben. And one question I think that's really important for the whole community is one about the art of language on the boards, the art of language between the different departments, between players. You know about what I'm talking here. So my question to you is, if you run this position, what is your impression? What is your standard that you like to run into here in the interaction between the departments and the players and each person involved?
I think the most important thing, and I've reiterated that a couple of times, is it's important to talk to each other. That you can't beat that with anything. And as I said, I only have access to the staff forum since yesterday, but I browsed about it a little, and I was actually quite shocked at how uncivil it gets sometimes. And I think we need to improve that. And it's my firm belief that we can only improve that by talking to each other. And that's where it seems to me like I've been talking to people continuously for the past 2 weeks, ever since I took over the playtest manager role. And I've learned so many things just from talking to people. I learned a lot about what design is doing. I learned a lot about, many different things, what Errata is doing. And that is something that is definitely underutilized, I think, in the community. And when it comes to when we go away from the departments and it comes to talking to the general community, I think even there's much improvement that we can make, and I'd be, given that I would get this position, I'd be looking very much forward to that.
Okay. Thanks. And another question, I think that's fitting in pretty well, because if I'm informed rightly, you just joined the online platform use of Lecky, right?
Yep.
So I think that's the best moment just to ask you, how can the whole community improve that kind of play, online play? Because I think we are all on the same space here, that in the next month and maybe in the next year or even more, that will be like the main forum to play and to connect in kinds of play, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I dove into that. I never had, you know, much reason to play online before the pandemic struck, because we have a pretty good community here where we can play live, you know, pretty much all of the time.
I remember.
But you know, ever since this started, I decided to try and pick it up, and there's a lot of hesitation about Lackey, because it's you know, it's not the best program, but thus far it's all we got. But I would, you know, I would really go and communicate to the community that it's actually not that hard to learn. You know, it's taken me a couple of weeks, and a lot of people are willing to help. And we got the dojo, and you can go there, and there's basically, you know, every day there's people there that you can talk to, and they're all pretty friendly and are willing to, you know, teach you the ins and outs. And I think yeah, we could make a push maybe through social media to know, you know, to let people know, hey, online is there. It's easy. There's people willing to help, and you know, it's a good alternative if we can't go out and meet. And you know, in my opinion, nothing beats going out and meeting people. It's half the fun. It's half the fun
Yeah.
of everything that we're doing. And you know, in a lot of these instances, you know, the game becomes secondary. It's you know, about the gatherings. But since that's not possible at the present time, I'm willing to, or I'm hoping we can get more people into online play.
Thanks. So that has been all my questions here. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about for forgetting you, Sasha. I apologize.
No problem. I have a mouth and I know how to run it.
All right. So now if there are no other questions, I will go ahead and end recording.